Micah with OT Defense. Just want to do a quick intro of a new product. This is the GripFix Hump Eliminator. So it will give you a guide to eliminate the backstrap of your Glock so that you can either reshape said backstrap that you've cut off or use one of our nylon inserts and stipple that into place. So essentially this makes your Glock point more like a 1911. The front portion of the jig is a steel block with a small drill blank that goes through the trigger pin housing, and you'll use different holes depending on which size frame you're using. These drill blanks are Loctite into place. This back portion here, which has set screws to lock it in once you're on your frame, is designed to go in right there. Remove the trigger housing pin. I just pop this out of there. Leave these set screws loose on the back, and then push that through. Then set the back set screws to lock it in. For these larger frames, you are going to use the front hole. That's the only difference. So if you're not confident enough or feel like you're gonna mess something up, this is probably something that you should take to a gunsmith that is confident enough to do this. You take a hacksaw, saw downward, until you reach both of those drill blanks. Then you're gonna take the saw, come across the back. There's a little bit of wobble here, so I always press down on the bottom of the frame in order to eliminate that. And then you're gonna run the saw along the drill blanks until you get to the back. Remove that. Save this piece because you might use it. So after you've made your cut, you can just take a file or anything really and run it across here and make sure that you are flush with these two drill blanks or the guide rods of the jig. And I can feel that I have one little teeny spot right here, so I just file that down to make that fit perfect. You got a couple options. You could reshape this, heat it up, flatten it out, glue it back into place, stipple it back into place, or we have flat back straps. These are nylon material, super resilient, and I've had this on multiple of my personal guns for about 3 years now. If I'm a little bit far sticking out above that, then I can take my Dremel tool and grind off a little bit of material here to make that slide up far enough to where it'll fit flush. This material is 3D printed, but it is solid, so no worry about going through and hitting the matrix that's common in most 3D printed parts. Okay, so I'm gonna be happy with that and just Dremel off these corners slightly. Okay, so I can work with that. So at this point, I'm gonna glue this into place. Make sure when you put this on that you're getting it straight with the frame itself. And obviously we're sticking up just a little bit and sticking out a little bit on this Gen 5. that's not a concern at all. We can melt that material in afterwards or Dremel it off, whichever you prefer. So I'm gonna let that sit overnight. So a quick side note here that I didn't mention, you put your glue on here, don't put a ton towards the top, and then when you put your back strap in place, you can add a piece of tape if you want, or a rubber band around this just to hold it completely snug, and then make sure that you set the gun down with the trigger housing up. So don't set it down like this, like you normally would if you're working on it, because that can, if you have excess glue, result in some glue going down into your trigger housing. Okay, so I'll be the first to admit, I don't like spending a ton of time polishing. And I'm not too concerned about my guns being super pretty just because I like to shoot them instead of look at them. But that took 5 minutes, 2 different bits to make this smooth, catch-free for the magazine. Tons of guys out there with videos on how to polish things super well. And there's guys who will do this, a grip reduction for you, and have it polished and shinier than a factory Glock when they send it back to you. So if that's something you're concerned about, then get with one of those guys, have them do your gunsmithing work for you. But for the do-it-yourself users or the gunsmiths who want a simpler, easy way to do this, that's what I designed this for. So in less than an hour, I've got a grip reduction, and now the gun points like a 1911, except it's plastic. Couple notes of interest. Here is a Gen 4. Uses the same backstrap as the Gen 5. This is 0.10 inches thick here. On the Gen 1 through 3, this is 0.15. I mean, that's almost a 1/16 of an inch thicker as far as the material goes. So they've just changed some little things around. So I have a different backstrap for the Gen 3s and below. And there you can see how that fits to match that material up better, and looks a little different on the back side. There's a back strap stippled in a whole bunch of different textures that we offer, just to give you an idea of what this material can do. Stipples quite similarly to a factory Glock. Obviously has a little bit different of a color to it. Most people probably won't even notice it if they're just glancing at your gun, but if you're one of those guys who's super picky about what their gun looks like, this might not be the best option with our back straps. You might be better off reshaping this and putting it back into place. So here's a sample of the material that we use on our back straps as well as our 3D printed nub mods. This has been out here for 3 years. This board was actually flat when we initially put it in place. You can see the material has held up extremely well to 3 years of sun, rain, snow, everything. Temperature ranges from -10 to just about 100 degrees out here, so hopefully that gives you guys some confidence as far as how resilient the material is. So here's my personal carry gun that has a prototype backstrap in it. I've modified from this version obviously since, but this is with the wagon wheel tip. This is the second time I've stippled this gun in the past couple years because it sees quite a bit of use, and I wear it when I'm up hiking, backpacking, doing timber thinning. And as you can tell, the back strap, you can barely see the difference in the material between the factory Glock and the back strap itself. But it's flat. So here's a frame with the X tip, and I left a little material here to kind of give it a little bit of a swell right there at the top, but still flattened out this portion. And you can see slightly where the material change is. Here's a frame that was already stippled. 12 LPI micro diamond, little Glock 44. And to fade that in where that line is right there, I just made a little angle there and stippled it to blend that. This is the thorns tip, and I've got a whole video showing this gun being stippled initially and then cut the back strap off and put another one into place. This again is a prototype, it's a little different than what we're selling on our site. So there you have it. That gives you a good overview of how to utilize the Hump Eliminator. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to shoot us an email, info@otdefense.com, or even give us a call. Ask the questions before you buy the product even, or especially before you start working on your gun. Just like stippling, you got to practice this stuff and make sure you are doing it correctly before you go to a valuable item that is harder to replace than not these days.